Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt and welcome to New Brick Workshop. Now, I've just bought this cabinet at auction, and what attracted me towards it is that it's just what I need for the hall to hide the technology, because we've got a router there which is connected to my broadband, and we've got various other little gadgets, and they all currently sit in a heap and there's wires everywhere. This will allow me to house everything inside here. Because it's an old hi-fi cabinet, there's lots of space. There's a lid that lifts up if you wanted to, but I won't be using that feature. Shelf here where a record player used to go, you know, the old-fashioned vinyl record player. Here where your hi-fi stack would go. There's a drawer, and then this bottom bit opens out, and that's where you would put the old vinyl long-playing records, and in here you could put CDs and DVDs. So that's what it looks like. It's in pretty good order, apart from a couple of scratches. The top I'll show you in a minute. And I've had a very quick practice go. There was a very deep gouge just here, and it almost went through the veneer. Not quite. So as an experiment, I sanded it down locally, and I've tried to bring the colour back with some wood stain. I've not quite got the colour right, and I'm not sure if with French polish that would now settle down and be uniform. I may have to put a little bit more dye on there. Now, I did try on this scratch here just a bit of French polish on its own with no sanding, and that's not good enough. So I'm going to have to do something there. And luckily the front is in pretty good order, and so I'm pleased with that. The top is not so good, and it's got so many marks on it. I'm going to completely sand the top. It's a small area, and it will look better if I completely sand it. And then I've got to deal with these brass handles now, and also the escutcheons around where the keyholes are. So I'm going to take all of those off and see what I can do. Now, this top is not brilliant, and I'll just try leaning it towards you so you can see it just a little better. There's quite a few scratches here, there, and little bits and pieces all over. So I'm going to just give this a sand. Now, when this piece of furniture was made, it was distressed, and in distressing, what they do is they flick bits of black ink on it. You might just be able to make it out. They give it the odd little knock here and there, but they then fill that with some polish of some description or varnish. I think this has had acrylic varnish on it, not French polish. And so all in all, when I sand, I'm going to lose some of this false history. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. So we'll see what happens. Now, I've got 180 grit in this sander, and I'm just going to very gently give it a go. Well, having sanded the top, I then French polished it, and it's come up, but not too bad actually, better than I expected. The reason I was a bit worried was that the commercial finish that was put on this, which is probably one of those really hard-wearing acrylic finishes, maybe even a two-part one. Once you start sanding it, you have to take it all off. And you're really committed then. I've cheated and not taken it all off in other places, and you can just see. But anyway, I've took it all off there. It actually doesn't look too bad at all. I'm very pleased. Now, the trick is when you're French polishing is to get yourself a rubber. This is a rubber. It's a piece of lint-free cloth in which is a pad. In fact, I've got some screwed up cloth in there. And into that you put a bit of French polish, and occasionally I put a little bit of methylated spirits just to keep the whole thing soft. And you turn it into a pad and then start rubbing. And you finish off by going with the grain. If it starts to stick when you're rubbing, you can use a tiny bit of linseed oil, and that helps. And to save you asking me, I used to make my own French polish. I used to buy the shellac, and I used pure ethyl alcohol to dissolve it, and that way it didn't change the colour of it at all. But now I buy it. I buy French polish ready-made. This is Liberon. It's called Easy French Polish, and it really is easy. You can brush it on, just wipe it off almost. And I got this from Axminster. Now, all of the brass, particularly these drop handles, were in a pretty poor condition. And so what I did was I mixed up a mixture with citric acid in it, and I left all this lot to soak for a couple of hours. And after that time, it still looked a bit grubby, but then I used some quadruple zero wire wool. That's a very, very fine wire wool, just to wipe off the detritus that was still on the surface. And then I followed that with some of this brass cleaner, and that's made a pretty good job. The awkward bits were these little round ends, which are part of how the drop handles are held in. And what I did was I got one of the screws that these screw into, put it in the drill, and then screwed one of those on. My little bit of brass cleaner on this cloth, and finished off with that, and then a piece of cloth. And I hope that that can be seen clearly as rather nice and shiny. And you can probably see now the effect of cleaning these handles. It's made a super job. The tricky bit was actually removing these, because at the top and the very bottom are little brass nails. They're not very long, and just under the handle is a screw. And the screw's easy enough to get out, and these were a little tricky. And so what I used were these. They're end snips, I think they call them, or something like that. And so I could use this to get a purchase behind the nail and then gradually pull it out. Not very easy at all. But that's made quite a good job. Now at the back, I've cut holes in the back of this so I can get at my various sockets. I think you can probably see one of the holes, which is at the back here. So this is not going to be anything like it was at the very beginning. So it's got lots of holes in the back now to take all the electronics to get it out of sight. My only job now is to put the final bits of brass on the drawer and also on the fake drawers, which are here. These are fake drawers because originally this is where LPs and CDs were kept. But again, I'm keeping that now as an open space for storage of other things. So just those bits of brass, then a nice polish with some beeswax. Well, there it is, it's finished, and it's in situ, and I'm very pleased. Just look how well these handles have come up. They really are so much better than they were at the beginning. And inside here now, I've been able to hide our router, our telephone. This is the master unit for the telephone, which we rarely need to touch. The other phones in the house are connected to it wirelessly, and there's a couple of other little gadgets connected to the router there. So they're all tucked away and out of sight. And then in here, I've got some storage, as I think I mentioned before, and there's a drawer just here. So all in all, a very useful little cabinet. Now, the lessons I've learnt from this are, if you've got that sort of acrylic, non-French polish type finish, then it's very difficult to just patch it up in a place. You've actually got to sand it all off. And that's what I did on top, and it's worked really well. But at this side here, it was really, really difficult to get it right. And really, I perhaps should have sanded the whole of this off because matching the colour here was very difficult. And I'm relying on the fact that people won't notice it. And in time, it may just not appear to be as bad as it is now. So the other lesson is go to your local auction. You may well be able to pick up a bargain like this in really good condition with just a few minor tweaks here and there to make it absolutely super. So there you've had it, my very simple little restoration project. Don't be afraid to have a go at these things yourself. There are plenty of videos that tell you how to go about French polishing in detail. It's really quite easy and not as hard as people think it is. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.